Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. This is Naaman with the DC Camp Great Millstone, back for another video. First and foremost, call hello Yahweh, Shem Yahushua, Shem Rakahakwadash. And once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations also go out to the fellow Akim that are out there on the highways and byways, pushing the truth across four corners of this earth. Alright, while time still allows us to do so. Because with all the things happening, with all these prophecies coming to pass, alright, things which I hope you're paying attention to that are happening across the waters, especially over there in the region, Western Asia, Russia. Now Poland is scared shitless. What else? Search warrant out from the International Criminal Courts. Oh man, it's it's, you know, this is not the time to be, in particular, Jake, and just, you know, having that cavalier attitude. No, hey, well, you know, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. If you are caught out there, it's because of you. I can't say any more about it. But in this video, guess what? The mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. And you have to wonder at this point, why are you still towing the line for these pieces of shit in the Democratic Party? It's like you're starting to, me in particular, like, well, they got something on you? What the fuck is going on here? Your own people went to the extreme. Some might call it an extreme. I say they gained a little bit of common sense. A little bit. But if they truly wanted to play the game right, you should have never kept, and this is for the last 60 years, kept voting for a party that took you for granted, that never did anything substantive for you. All right, the condition of your people at best remain the same. All right, and now 60 years later, you realize that you were getting screwed. Wow. I mean, it had to happen sometime. So, with all that, let's go ahead and roll this. I'm not going to talk too much longer. I'd just rather let the video do the talking.
Now to NBC5 investigates, which for months has followed the money trail tied to Chicago's migrant mission. Total spending now tops more than $400 million.
Now, despite the creation of a city spending website, it's still not exactly clear where all of that money has gone.
A few moments later.
I won't raise your property taxes.
Then candidate for mayor, Brandon Johnson.
A few moments later.
Mayor Brandon Johnson was more than 40 minutes into his speech before he broke the bad news to homeowners across the city.
This budget currently includes a property tax increase of $300 million to fund and keep our commitment to fund not just our pension contributions, but to fund the future of our city.
A few moments later.
Good afternoon.
I want to know, how does it feel that Trump is in office right now? You see the feds need to address you, DOJ need to address you, and hopefully Donald Trump will address you, because you're going to protect the undocumented while you're going to allow for the citizens in the Chicago to suffer under your, what, 33%?
For a purpose and not for you to go touching it with $300 million that you want to siphon out of the citizens' pockets. Get rid of the illegals, and that'll take your money right back.
A few moments later.
The first breaking news at City Hall, Mayor Brandon Johnson's property tax hike is rejected by...
And it's like I said, it seems so simple. So, what the fuck is really going on here? Alright? Keep telling you, or trying to tell you, because Jake is just dense as, you know. This shit is all set up. And you're going to see this part coming up here where the Republicans said, you know what? You wanted to be sanctuary cities? Hey, go ahead.
City Council.
It was an increase the mayor called to balance the budget. Sabrina Franzen joins us live. Sabrina, a lot has happened in the last hour.
Jim Marie, it is unanimous. Every single alderperson voted it down, the mayor's $300 million property tax proposal. They say they have plenty of ideas. Now Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to be forced to listen to them.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson spent $400 million on migrants and now wants to raise taxes to pay for his generosity. Let's talk about it.
Begin with some breaking news on the Chicago City budget. It could be short nearly $1 billion. We just learned that's the shortfall Mayor Brandon Johnson is projecting for the 2025 budget.
And that means the city will need to make some tough financial decisions. A nearly $1 billion shortfall. That's what the city of Chicago is facing for their 2025 budget. Mayor Brandon Johnson saying the city needs to find $982 million.
And see, it isn't lost on myself and others that all this shit started right after it became clear that Jake wanted reparations. They wanted something of substance, like I said. Now, was this such a threat? You got to understand, Jake, yes, we are here for punishment, all right? The scriptures tell us that. The prophecies apply to us as being the Israelites. You got to wonder if the motivation behind this, as in ancient Egypt, where the Pharaoh did not want to let us go. Because think about it. Us being here is the equivalent of the goose that lays the golden egg. Do you want to get rid of that goose? Do you want to get rid of them? Do you want to get rid of a people that just them being here, you've made and continue to make all kinds of money off of them in various ways? Think about that.
$1 billion.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. See, we have two political parties.
Just thought of something else, Salaki. Because here's the thing. You've got these old fossils from the civil rights era. You have this, what's his asshole's name out in, is it San Francisco? Where Kamala Harris supposedly used to attend this church. I believe his name is Amos. Oh, what is his name? He's a reverend pastor, whatever the fuck. Is it Brown or some shit? I forget. Anyway, he's the current head of the NAACP out there. In fact, I got something else in, I don't want to, damn it. And I have no other way to, shit. Anyway, you know, people like this, and they came up with, well, no, we don't want any reparations as far as cash is concerned. We want it, and in this way, and the thing about cash is you can do all that on your own, or if you want to, you can just get the fuck up out of here and leave if you want. But what they're trying to do, if, and I stress, if that will come to pass, it's all going to have to be done in a way that these Edomites can still profit off of it. See? It scares the hell out of them. Give them cash reparations. Fuck. More reason for speeding up this digital currency thing. This MOTB. See, you all don't believe, but everything's pointing toward this. All right? 2025, like we say, it's going to be one hell of a year because things are speeding up. Continuing on.
Here in the United States, we have the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, when it comes to the southern border, Democrats are let everyone come in and we can take care of the world. So, you know the story. Chicago, New York, and other left-wing cities claimed that they wanted migrants to come there. They wanted open borders and claimed that migrants were welcome, no matter where they came from. Here is the Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson explaining how migrants are welcome in the city and they can handle it.
We know the strength of a
city is determined by how we treat the most vulnerable. And so we choose to be a strong city. We must reject a zero-sum formulation between investing in those who have been here for decades and supporting those who have been sit here on a bus even this morning. We can do both, Chicago, and we can all thrive together.
Now, the same message was coming from other liberal states, like New York, where the governor essentially begged migrants to come to New York.
You, Jakes, I hope you realize now that the real assholes, well, actually, it's everybody. You shouldn't trust any of these motherfuckers. But Jake fell asleep and fell in love, not necessarily in that order, with the Democrats, and these were your enemies the whole time. You were sleeping with the enemy. And I hate to reference this, but Malcolm X, when he talked about the wolf and the fox, dead spot on. But then the scriptures before him tell you the same thing. It tells you never trust your enemy. Have these people not been our enemy the whole time? And there are other scriptures. All right. You're seeking love from someone that's never going to love you back. This was a place for our punishment. These people, the nation of Edom, the red people, the real red people, they prefer to call themselves white because they, think that much of themselves. They are our mortal enemies. Mortal enemies. They've been trying to kill us ever since. This goes back to what? Genesis 27, actually Genesis 25, but the point is Genesis 27 verses 38 through 41, where Esau swears to kill his brother Jacob. These are two brothers, their offspring. Of course, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. So the 12 sons that he had are the progenitors of the 12 tribes. And then you have Edom, Genesis 36 chapter. You can go look that up for yourself. His descendants, Esau's descendants, are the nation of Edom. There you go. And he's been screwing us over ever since. All right. So here are these people with their little plan. All right. But again, it's as if they never intended for us, or a good portion of us, to wake up. Not only to who we really are, ultimately that's their greatest fear, but what their little scheme was. And you want to ask for reparations? That's why I have this thing at the end. I was going to do it myself, but I'm not a, professional actor or anything like that, or, these people that do voiceovers. So let's continue on.
New York.
We want people to come here, despite where they came from, or despite the circumstances that drove them to this country, into this state. We say you are welcome here. You're welcome with open arms, and we'll work to keep you safe. We'll not only house you, but we'll protect you. And the richness of the culture and the diversity.
Sadness in all of this is these are our people that they're using against us. They're playing this game as if hoping that all hell will break loose. We can pit them once, against each other. And then we'll come in on our white horse. See? Yeah.
And the food and the restaurants that we know are going to be coming because of these efforts are beyond measure. It's an extraordinary part of our story. And it's woven into the story of New York, and it makes us more vibrant.
Now, this virtual signaling was...
In the meantime, while all this is going on between Jake, Northern Kingdom, Southern Kingdom, this fiasco, guess who's coming in? Red carpet. Nobody's paying attention to. I've been hearing Eastern European accents, like, what the, and just straight out Eastern European languages more and more. You know.
Great for politics. And since almost no migrants were coming to New York and Chicago, but were all staying at the southern border, then they could call the Republicans racist, and they could deny that stricter border policy was necessary. There were no consequences. But the governors in those border states came up with a solution. If cities like Chicago and New York wanted illegal immigrants, then let's send them there.
Salakia.
This was a win-win. Those cities get the migrants, and they also get the problem that come with those migrants.
Local officials whose communities are being overwhelmed by hordes of illegal immigrants who are being dropped off by the Biden administration. Texas is providing charter buses to send these illegal immigrants who have been dropped off by the Biden administration to Washington, D.C. We are sending them to the United States Capitol, where the Biden administration will be able to more immediately address the needs of the people that they are allowing to come across our border.
Well, it has happened again. Another bus of migrants has been sent here to Los Angeles.
39 asylum seekers arrived by bus at Union Station today, sent by Texas, including 21 children.
Another wave of migrants arrived in New York City today. More than 4,000 have come.
It makes me wonder, what if this was reversed? You got to think about that. All right. Now, I had heard a couple of years ago that things had, but they kept it hush hush. You had a lot of Americans that were going down into Mexico. Never heard much about it since. I just happened to remember that. But you had some instances where, people down there didn't want them there. You got the reverse. Again, don't hear anything about that anymore. But here's the thing, because a lot of these people, they come here and they complain. This is not just limited to Northern Kingdom. I'm talking about actual heathens from other countries. I mean, they have the nerve to complain about us, but I, on the other hand, have to ask, well, if, because they come over here, they get educated and they start talking shit, I'm like, well, if you're that bad, that Superman or Superwoman, why don't you go back to your own country and make that, all right, a far better place. All right, but everybody comes over here and they jump on the white supremacist bandwagon. Wow. That largest and biggest religion on the planet Earth, white supremacy strikes again. So-called white supremacy, Edomite supremacy. All right, so let's continue.
Since May, a metaphorical message from Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Texas has sent another bus of migrants away from the state, this one arriving in Chicago last night. It comes after the state has sent more than 8,000 migrants to New York and Washington, D.C.
Then all of a sudden it became the migrant crisis and they started declaring states of emergency.
This morning, the mayor of Washington, D.C. has requested the help of the National Guard to assist with the buses of migrants arriving to her city.
Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey has declared a state of emergency to address the state's growing migrant crisis. The governor says there are over 20,000 people being temporarily housed across the state.
Our top story, another bus of migrants arrived today in Los Angeles and were taken to St. Anthony's Croatian Church for processing.
Back in New York, the mayor had a stark message this month.
I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
And guess who's sitting in the background, orchestrating all of this, laughing? Guess. Who knows who we really are? And then Trump comes in, gets reelected, comes in as the white knight.
Increasingly, the migrant crisis is being felt far from the border, including cities like Chicago, where officials say resources are running thin.
So Mayor Johnson in Chicago, as you just heard, opened the doors up and said, we're going to take care of everybody.
We know the strength of a city is determined by how we treat the most vulnerable. And so we choose to be a strong city. We must reject a zero-sum formulation between investing in those who have been here for decades and supporting those who have been sit here on a bus even this morning. We can do both, Chicago, and we can all thrive together.
But there's a question.
You all were clapping there. Yeah, I noticed that. Look at this. All right. Let's get some of these comments. Those who say Trump's deportation operation will cost too much money ignore the billions that have already been spent by just individual cities already. You have zero responsibilities to illegals, and that's the thing everybody's concerned with. It's not that you're against, or at least they say that, but they want you to do it legally, supposedly. Yet, what about all these other people from other countries that are, you're not making a big brouhaha about that? Like I said earlier. Distractions. You, however, do, let me read it again, you have zero responsibility to illegals. You have, however, do have the responsibility to your legal citizens. Politicians are most generous with other people's money, only to umbrage when confronted. Yeah. Johnson needs to be investigated, blah, 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 blah. I'm black and my mother thinks I'm a racist because I said to her that U.S. citizens are my priority. And this is exactly what made many of us jump on the Trump bandwagon, all right? Because this is ridiculous. How can a mayor bankrupt a city and not face state and federal malfeasance charges? Good point. Good question. Exactly, but it's happening in San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, and yes, the once great state of California. Let's see here. Here's one. So let's tax people that live here legally to pay for illegals to live here illegally.
And after 1 year of trying to take care of all the migrants, Chicago found itself in a $500 million hole.
The city opened its books today for the first time in a while, and the picture wasn't pretty. There's a $538 million deficit.
In April, Mayor Lightfoot forecasted an $85 million deficit for next year. 5 months later, that number has ballooned to a $538 million deficit forecast. Mayor Johnson writing this gap is driven by several factors, including rising personnel, pension, and contractual costs, as well as the cost of care for new migrants arriving to the city.
Now, Mayor Johnson had made a campaign promise not to raise property taxes.
I won't raise your property taxes.
But with the budget kind of ballooning like this to a $500 million deficit, how are you going to get that extra revenue? So the news media asked him outright, are you going to raise property taxes? Here's what he said.
I won't raise your property taxes.
Then candidate for mayor, Brandon Johnson.
The people of Chicago want to know, will you raise a tax, whether it be a property tax or implement something else?
Well, it's interesting. No one has ever asked me if I'm going to raise a tax.
In January, we sat down and asked the mayor multiple times if he'd use a property tax increase to pay for the city's debts. At the time, one of the biggest concerns was paying for the migrant crisis.
So you can commit to you not raising property taxes, regardless of how bad the situation gets.
Okay, I stopped the video. He's either going to say yes or no. He's going to say a lot of words, but either it's going to be a yes or no. Now, I'm assuming if it was a no, you say no, right? Because no is easy. But let's see what he says.
My budget, the $16.77 billion that I just passed, 41 alders, I believe, supported this this budget. And we did all of that without raising property taxes. The evidence is in what I passed.
Now, after this interview, Mayor Johnson continued to spend large amounts of money on the migrant crisis until that number reached $400 million.
Now to NBC5 investigates, which for months has followed the money trail tied to Chicago's migrant mission. Total spending now tops more than $400 million.
Since August of 2022, the city of Chicago has spent more than $400 million, according to the city's spending website. Nearly $253 million went to one private company, Kansas-based Favorite Healthcare Staffing, which staffs the shelters. Another $76 million went to Equitable Social Solutions. That company partnered with another called ReloShare, which helped identify and sign lease agreements with property owners of the buildings that eventually became the migrant shelters.
So as you see, Mayor Johnson dropped $400 million on the migrant crisis, and millions more are piling up every month. Now, by September 2024, we were almost at $1 billion budget deficit.
The biggest question looming for Mayor Brandon Johnson is whether or not he will have to raise property taxes to offset a budget shortfall his team estimates will be just over $982 million next year. The mayor suggesting he's open to many options.
There are a litany or plethora amount of options that are on the table that my administration will be exploring collectively.
The mayor's team is budgeting $150 million for migrant care, the same as last year, despite the significant drop-off in the number of people being bused to Chicago.
So Mayor Johnson proposed, hey, I need $150 million for migrant care. If I raise taxes $300 million, I can take care of the migrants and a little bit more. So he says, you know what? Let's just raise property taxes $300 million.
Mayor Brandon Johnson was more than 40 minutes into his speech before he broke the bad news to homeowners across the city.
This budget currently includes a property tax increase of $300 million to fund and keep our commitment to fund not just our pension contributions, but to fund the future of our city.
Now remember, Johnson had promised not to raise property taxes when he was running, remember?
I won't raise your property taxes.
But now he is raising property taxes, or at least trying to raise property taxes, so the citizens, let them know how they feel.
Good evening, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I want to know, how does it feel that Trump is in office right now? You see Mayor Brandon Johnson, you underestimate us.
Mr. Sims, direct your attention towards me, please.
You're a criminal. Why do I got to address you? The feds need to address you. DOJ need to address you, and hopefully Donald Trump will address you, because you're going to protect the undocumented while you're going to allow for the citizens in Chicago to suffer under your, 33%? See, Joe Lopez cooked that 3% up a long time ago.
What about our real estate? Because, see, we paid for these properties for a purpose and not for you to go touching it with $300 million that you want to siphon out of the citizens' pockets. Get rid of the illegals, and that'll take your money right back. Started off with that.
So now the city council had a choice. Do they go with the mayor's $300 million plan, or...
This is what you jakes get for trusting in, first of all, man. All right? Wow, how many scriptures are... your enemy, no less. All right? And a nation that never gave a damn about you. That's Lamentations. Let's get that real quick. All right? In fact, yeah, I'll get it here. This is Lamentations. 4, straight to the point, 17. As for us, our eyes as yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us, nor do they want to. All this money and aid that they're sending overseas in what's turned out to be a fucking money laundering scheme. And the same people are profiting twice. Those same people, I'm talking about the JOOs. Ukraine and Israel. Same folks. For those of you that didn't know. Yeah. So here you are, like a little puppy continually. And look what they do to you. This is how they've shown you, those that have been the most loyal demographic, despite what they've done to us for the longest of time. And I keep bringing up this analogy to whether it's true or not is not the point. It's what the story represents, and that's Stalin's chicken. Go look it up. That's Jake. That's Jake. That's that. Some call it Stockholm. I say go deeper. I say that colonial mentality. That's that Jeremiah 17:4, because everything was taken from us and whipped out of us, beaten out of us, and they instilled what they wanted. And it's generation after generation after generation after generation. Colonial mindset or mentality. All right, that's Jake. And they don't even want to give you they don't even consider the possibility of, well, these people get out of here, and we give them this money and they just up and leave. And it also goes back to in fact, let me go there, because this is a fear of theirs also. This is Exodus 1st chapter. Let's go down to 7. Let's see. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Yeah. Continuing on, and I'll get that what I promised you earlier.
Or do they reject it? Well, they unanimously rejected it.
But first, breaking news at City Hall. Mayor Brandon Johnson's property tax hike is rejected by City Council.
It is unanimous. Every single alderperson voted it down, the mayor's $300 million property tax proposal. They say they have plenty of ideas. Now Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to be forced to listen to them.
So you would think it would be over, but not really, because the mayor came back with a new proposal and said, okay, let's just raise property taxes $150 million.
Mayor Brandon Johnson announcing a budget breakthrough, saying he is humbled and grateful for the ideas that made it possible.
We have reduced the property tax levy by $150 million. And we hope this productive collaboration pushes us to find more progressive revenue sources and more efficiencies that will balance our budget.
There appears to be an agreement to tax cloud storage services. That would raise $128 million, and to hike fees on streaming services to raise another $9 to $10 million.
All right, so what do you think about the mayor of Chicago? He is in a bind, if I can ever see one. He wants to take care of migrants. He needs that $150 mil, but the people aren't really willing to give it to him. And what do you guys think about the people in Chicago? Do they really deserve this? They did vote this guy in, and he wasn't aggressive, and he was screaming he's going to help migrants. Now that cost something. And I still love the fact that when it was the people in Texas paying to take care of migrants, it was no problem. Now they got to take care of the migrants, and all heck has broken loose. Let me know how you feel in the comments section, because at the end of the day, immigration matters, and that is why probably Trump is going to be in the White House and Harris is not, because common sense means something nowadays. Don't forget, election.
Common sense. Yeah. All right. And that's what a lot of people voted. All right. Whichever side of the aisle you're on. Some things just are complicated, and they don't need to be. But in any case, I'm going to go to what I promised you, because at the end of the day, that's why we tell you, for those that continue to ask for reparations, look who you're asking about reparations. Psalms 43:1. All right, let's go to what I'm going to have it read to you. But first, let's go here, because you put your faith, for those of you that as our people, boy. Anyway, we're talking about idol worship and all that. Yeah. This is Wisdom of Solomon 13 and 17. Then maketh he prayer for his goods, for his wife and children, and is not ashamed to speak to that which hath no life. For health, and here's my point, for health he called upon that which is weak, for life prayeth to that which is dead, for aid humbly beseecheth that which hath less. Let me read again. For aid humbly beseecheth that which hath least means to help. They're going to find a way to empty the coffers. All this aid, because they never intended to give you anything. Understand that. So we'll give everything we can to these people that look like us. All right. And because the American pride, they're going to believe what we tell them about Ukraine and Israel. That shit didn't happen here. That happened over there. But yet you're not willing to face up to what you've done. That's, this is the coward that we're under. For aid humbly beseecheth that which hath least means to help, and for a good journey he asketh of that which cannot set a foot forth. Talking about those dumb idols. All right. So, and you people have made America and the so-called white man, the Edomite, your God. He never intended to do anything for you. Thank you, bye, or die. Either one. But he don't really want to let you go. This is Lawrence Fishburne, and this is a masterpiece letter that he's going to read from a former slave who in 1865, his name was Jordan Anderson. All right. His master wanted him to come back to work for him. The audacity, right? Well, here we go. After the Union, he was freed and all that. Got his letters, his papers and everything. Here we go.
Thank you. To my old master. The letter. Dayton, Ohio, August 7th, 1865. To my old master, Colonel P.H. Anderson, Big Spring, Tennessee. Sir, I got your letter and was glad to find that you had not forgotten Jordan and that you wanted me to come back and live with you again, promising to do better for me than anyone else can. I have often felt uneasy about you. I thought the Yankees would have hung you before this. For harboring Rebs that they found at your house. I suppose they never heard about your going to Colonel Martin's to kill the Union soldier that was left by his company in their stable. Although you shot at me twice before I left you, I did not want to hear of your being hurt and am glad that you are still living. It would do me good to go back to dear old home again and see Miss Mary and Miss Martha, Allen, Esther, Green, and Lee. Give my love to them all and tell them I hope we will meet in the better world, if not in this. I would have gone back to see you all when I was working in the Nashville hospital, but one of the neighbors told me that Henry intended to shoot me if he ever got a chance. I want to know particularly what the good chance is you propose to give me.
I am doing tolerably well here. I get $25 a month with victuals and clothing, have a comfortable home for Mandy. The folks call her Mrs. Anderson. And the children, Millie, Jane, and Grundy, go to school and are learning well. The teacher says that Grundy has a head for a preacher. They go to Sunday school, and Mandy and me attend church regularly. We are kindly treated. Sometimes we overhear others sing, "Them colored people were slaves down in Tennessee." The children, they feel hurt when they hear such remarks, but I tell them it was no disgrace in Tennessee to belong to Colonel Anderson. Many darkies would have been proud, as I used to be, to call you master. Now, if you will write and say what wages you will give me, I will better be able to decide whether it would be to my advantage to move back again. As to my freedom, which you say I can have, well, there's nothing to be gained on that score, as I got my free papers in 1864 from the Provost Marshal General of the Department of Nashville. Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you were disposed to treat us kindly and justly. And we have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send us our wages for the time that we served you. This will make us forget and forgive old scores and rely on your justice and friendship in the future. I served you faithfully for 32 years and Mandy 20 years. At $25 a month for me, $2 a week for Mandy, our earnings would amount to $11,680. Add this, the interest for the time of our wages have been kept back, and deduct what you paid for our clothing and 3 doctor visits for me, pulling a tooth for Mandy, and the balance will show what we are in justice entitled to. Please send the money by Adams Express in care of V. Winters, Esquire, Dayton, Ohio. If you fail to pay us for our faithful labors in the past, we can have little faith in your promises in the future. We trust the good Maker has opened your eyes to the wrongs which you and your fathers have done to me and my fathers in making us toil for you for generations without recompense. Here I draw my wages every Saturday night, but in Tennessee, there was never any payday for the Negroes any more than for the horses and cows. Surely there will be a day of reckoning for those who defraud the laborer of his hire. In answering this letter, please state if there would be any safety for my Millie and Jane, who are now grown up and both good-looking girls. You know how it was with poor Matilda and Catherine. I would rather stay here and starve and die if it came to that, than to have my girls brought to shame and violence by the wickedness of their young masters. You will also please state if there have been any schools open for the colored children in your neighborhood. The great desire of my life now is to give my children an education and have them form virtuous habits. Say howdy to George Carter and thank him for taking the pistol from you when you were shooting at me. Your old servant, Jordan Anderson.
So that's Jake, and this devil never is going to give you anything. All right, and that's why we always tell you this. And I'm gonna close with this. All right, I promise. This is Revelation 13:9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So with that, until the next video, again, keep in mind the power of prayer and fasting. And we're coming up here on Hanukkah. So with that, Shalom.